The one mistake that I have made that's cost my startup $55 million. And truthfully, I probably made this mistake so many times that it's cost me even more in terms of money, progress, time, millions of dollars. I look back and it's kind of embarrassing. But in this video, I'm going to talk about that one mistake and how you can avoid that mistake, especially when your startup starts to become more successful. You become even more vulnerable to making this mistake. Before we continue, my name is Ed Kang, 7-time funded founder with 2 exits. That just means I've failed a bunch of times in a real fancy way to get your attention. And this is what I'm talking about, the mistakes that I've made. Most of the startups that have not been successful have either shut down because A, the idea isn't good enough and I unwind it down on purpose. I've shut down a lot of startup ideas before they even really get off the ground because I've invalidated the idea. But B, when they do get off the ground and I get a little bit of funding, I've made this one mistake and it has hurt me so many times that I want to warn everybody else about it. And if you stay to the end of this video, not only am I going to show you how to avoid this mistake, but how to handle if you do make this mistake. All right, I've left you in suspense enough. The number one mistake that I've made is trusting the wrong people. And that may seem pretty straightforward, but let me get into it a little bit and you'll see what I'm talking about. Because when you start rolling along in your startup and you're achieving a little bit of success, maybe you've achieved a lot of success, people are going to come out of the woodwork. And the principle that you have to know is that money changes everything. That's how we measure success in startups. You're starting to get traction, you get that big chunk of investments in, you get 6 figures of investment checks, and people start paying attention. You get a little bit of press and people start paying attention. You start to hire some people, others start to pay attention. You take a little bit of time to yourself, others start to pay attention. So pay attention to this. Don't make the mistake of trusting the wrong people because you're going to be so focused. You get this myopic view, this tunnel vision of your startup that you can't see the forest for the trees. And I've been caught so many times because my wife tells me all the time that I just completely misjudge people and their character because I'm so focused on what I'm trying to get done. You develop these blind spots and you need people in your life to help avoid making the mistake of trusting the wrong people. There are 4 types of people that you should not trust. And let me work you through each one of them. The first person you should not trust is the one that doesn't deserve your trust. This person has a track record of doing things that fall short, they don't get results, and you have no reason to trust them whatsoever. Why would you trust them then? Maybe you're desperate, and maybe you've just run out of options and you just can't think of anything else to do, or maybe you're just blind and you don't do your due diligence ahead of time to figure out whether you can trust them or not. So don't trust this person. It's easy to spot them if you're looking. And that's number one important thing. Always do your diligence. There are times that I've said yes to investment coming in. I've said yes to taking certain meetings with investors, and I didn't do the due diligence and I regretted it. There are times that I've worked with different customers and clients and employees and I didn't check references and I find out later I should never trust them in the first place. By then it's too late. The second person that you should not trust is the one that hasn't earned your trust and you haven't started the process of building that trust. They may be great people and you can eventually trust them, but if you don't have a process to begin trusting them, you're going to eventually be in trouble because they might start to take advantage of you, or you're not establishing the expectations right up front on what you need to see from them to begin to trust you. And it works both ways. They have things that they need to see from you so that they can start trusting you, and you're developing that relationship together. Having a process is extremely important. For example, if I want to trust a vendor, someone to come work for my startup as a freelancer, I'm going to give them a little bit before I trust them with a lot. I may have no reason not to trust them, but I don't have any reasons to trust them either. So my process is to test it with little bite-sized chunks. If someone tells me that they need $5,000 and 3 months of budget to accomplish something, I'm going to say, what can you do for $500? I start with 10%. And if they run away or they're mad at me because they want $15,000, then I'm not going to enter into that process of developing that trust. But if they stick in there and they say, okay, yeah, here's what I think I can do for the $500, then it's worth pursuing. I have an investor that has been with me for about 30 years. And I remember him saying, whenever he would go and get financial business and get clients, he would say to them, give me 1% of your trust and I'll earn the other 99%. And that's what I like to do myself. I like to just ask for a little bit up front and under promise and over deliver so that they're begging me to give me the rest of the 99%. Well, it should go the other way around. If I trust you with 1%, I'm expecting you to come back and say, I will do what it takes to earn the other 99%. So I always do these little tests, and it has saved me so much money because I just did one for about $300 with a freelancer just this past week. And I'm so glad I didn't commit to a long-term contract because it just didn't work out. And I'm willing to spend the $300 to find out. And then I had enough information to go and find the freelancer I really needed. I still gave them the test, but they ended up performing and doing about 5 times the amount of work for the $300, and I was super happy about it. If I was stuck with the other option, well, I'd be pretty cranky about it right now. That's your second person that you should not trust. The third person that you shouldn't trust, this is a little bit of an abstract, weird one for some people. You should not trust the people who do not trust themselves. These are individuals that might have all the talent in the world and might have the capabilities to help you out, or you want to bring them in. Let's say make them a co-founder. Maybe you're going to take some of their money as an investor, but they don't trust themselves. Then you're going to end up with a lot of heartache in the future. These individuals don't have confidence. There might be things going on with them where they're second guessing themselves, or they're distracted and unsure of themselves. It'd be the same as if you were just in the Super Bowl, which we just watched right now, where the Kansas City Chiefs came back in overtime to beat the San Francisco 49ers. This was overtime. This is one and done. This is the entire season for all the marbles. And the coach goes up to the star quarterback, Patrick Mahomes. Andy Reid goes up to Patrick Mahomes and says, are you ready? This is it. And Patrick Mahomes is saying, oh, I really don't know about this, coach. I totally screwed up the whole game. I just don't know. I'm not feeling it right now. Are you sure you can put me in? Are you sure about the decision that you're making? Are you sure about that play call? Are you sure everybody else can handle it? And he starts showing all these signs where he doesn't trust himself. As a coach, are you going to put that quarterback in? No, because they're going to psych themselves out. It's a weird place to be, but you can have all the talent in the world, and if something gets in your head, you're going to choke. And you have to be able to recognize those people very, very far away. And that's the reason you ask them questions and you test them with the process to figure out, are they feeling it? Because if they're not, you have to give them a little bit of space till they get that confidence back, that swagger back, so they can execute. Because if you trust them, you'll only have yourself to blame if they end up choking, because you've seen the signs that they don't trust themselves. This also goes with people who don't have the emotional maturity to warrant your trust. They might have all the potential in the world and you believe in them. You can't trust them. And that's not because they're bad people, they're just not ready, and you might be setting them up to fail, which is going to contribute to your failure. You cannot trust them. And this is something that has saved me so many times, especially when I invest in founders or when I want to work with founders. I test their confidence. And if they're overconfident, well, that's one thing. But if they just don't trust themselves, I've had these conversations with a founder where I've said, what is it going to take for you to trust your gut instinct? Because it's always been right up to this point in time. And when you don't trust your gut instinct, you lose valuable time and people start to get this perception of you. We need to avoid that. I've literally had that conversation with founders. And let me tell you, it served me just as well as how painful it's been in the past in terms of trusting the wrong person who doesn't trust themselves. The last type of person you cannot trust, and now we're going really deep, is the person that you can't trust yourself with. There's nothing wrong with that person, but there's something in you that clouds your judgment or puts you in a position to make really bad decisions. Let me be completely transparent and direct with you. I grew up with a lot of trauma in my childhood. Not because my parents were evil per se, but because they just didn't know any better and they did their best. But it caused me developmental trauma, which led to different types of triggers that I experienced when working with certain types of individuals. And what happens is I think I'm doing all the right things, but I'm doing them for the wrong reasons, and then I end up doing all the wrong things. It ends up bad. I have partnered with specific people that have triggered me, or I have complied with different requests because I'm triggered, I'm psychologically vulnerable, I'm compromised, and I can't make the most objective decision. They are all emotionally driven decisions, and those emotions in me, that hurt, that pain, have leaked out into the situation, and people have looked at me and said, this is a really important sign. They've said, Ed, you are not acting like yourself. This is so unlike you. And I realize, you know what, when I'm around these types of people, I can't trust myself. And nobody should trust me when I'm around these people. And I've had to put up some boundaries at first, and then I work on myself. I've done copious amounts of therapy. I make this joke all the time that the money that I've made in my past successes has only paid for the therapy to help me deal with the psychological damage that I've experienced spending on therapy for all my failures. But the reasons that I failed are really important. And that's a healthy journey you want to be on. It's like carrying a backpack and you're going up the mountain and you've got so many rocks in your backpack that have been put in there through all your experiences as you travel through life and your founder journey. And then eventually your legs give out and you fall and the backpack just spills open and you realize you've been carrying all this weight that you don't have to. Well, here's what you do. Sit down, stop for a moment, open the backpack, take a look inside before it becomes too late. And that's what I've learned to do. I've learned to relentlessly pursue my triggers, relentlessly pursue the parts of me, the psychosocial conditioning that are like icebergs, that I can see behavior at the top of the surface, but below it is the danger. That's what's going to sink the Titanic. The stuff that I don't see in my subconscious, that's how I deal with the people that I can't trust myself with them, so that eventually I can, because a lot of them are really great people that I should be working with, but I need to develop those boundaries, that psychological framework to be healthy in the way that I deal with them. Let me give you the number one tip. How you make sure that you don't trust the wrong people is you take care of your blind spots by surrounding yourself with people you trust, and you give them the permission to point out those blind spots. And you don't respond with insecurity. You make an agreement that they can point that out and that you have to sit there and process what they're saying with an open mind and an open heart. I have people in my life and I tell them, listen, if you see this sign in me, you're allowed to take me into a room, lock me in there, and say you are not leaving until you acknowledge that you gave me permission. We gave each other permission to have the conversation, and I'm pointing out the blind spot. Another tip, those individuals have to give you joy. This is part of my Joy Effects investment thesis. When you are glad to be around certain people in strength, but especially weakness, when you have blind spots and you're dealing with these trust issues, you're going to feel so vulnerable, and you don't want people to be afraid of your vulnerability or shame you in your vulnerability. And that's the reason I have amazing people in my life that I can go to them and say, I'm weak, I'm triggered, I'm in hopeless despair, I feel shame right now. And they say, that's okay, we're glad you told us. Now let's take a 360-degree view and see if you're being caught up in some of your blind spots and made some tough decisions. Let's have a straightforward, blunt, yet supportive, intentional, mindful conversation that's filled with joy. Not that I'm happy about it. Joy is not feeling happy. Joy is, I'm glad to be with this person in my strength, but especially weakness. Now, how did trusting the wrong people cost me $55 million? Well, here's what happened. I had a startup that was once valued at $55 million based on the last equity round. I owned stock, I was a millionaire, and guess what? As soon as we hit a few road bumps, those emotions took over, our insecurities took over. We were young. I was a young founder. I'd never experienced that type of success before. People came out of the woodwork. We ended up trusting all the wrong people, and we had the best intentions of it. I ended up trusting all 4 of the wrong people that I described in this video. You don't want to make that mistake, because I made it over and over again, and I ended up making decisions in my startups that have cost me money, have cost us budget, have cost me incentives and rewards, and have shut down startups. I had an extremely painful breakup with a co-founder, which took 5 years to figure out, a huge cost of opportunity because I trusted the wrong person. I look back and I could tell you over and over again how many times this happened. I want you to watch this next video. It's a video kind of hidden on my YouTube channel. It teaches you how to deal with the types of individuals that cannot and should not be trusted. And so how do you deal with them? Check that one out. If you like this one, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks again. I'll see you in the next video.